Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast, with your industry veteran hosts, Chris Detzel. This podcast starts now.
So welcome to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel, and I have a special guest today.
My name is John Connor.
John, you're on the Zoom. It says John Thomas Connor. So, I wasn't sure how to present you. That's why I let you do it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, just a lot of people have the name John Connor, so I had to throw out the middle name, for SEO reasons.
Yeah, the Terminator is one of them.
I have no idea what you could be referring to.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. It's kind of a movie that used to be around back in the day. So tell me, John, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into kind of the community stuff.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder and CEO of Faktura at Faktura.art, and we create no-code tools that enable brands and creators to launch advanced NFTs that can respond to live data. So we focus on really two buckets of innovation. One is making sure that everything is on your site. So we provide embed so that you can mint on your own website, sell the NFTs fully under your control. You own the smart contract. And then we've created a dynamic NFT architecture that allows for NFTs to update in response to live data.
You said a lot there, John.
Yeah.
And I want to break it down because NFTs have been around for a little bit, but not mainstream. Like I've never talked to a company about NFT stuff. So I'm highly interested. One is, what is an NFT? And you mentioned a lot of kind of live data, and all that kind of stuff, which is interesting. So can you talk a little bit about that? What is an NFT, first of all, and what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So first of all, an NFT, is a non-fungible token. A lot of people have heard that phrase. It doesn't explain a whole lot. And you can essentially think of it as an entry. All it is an entry in a database. Okay. Except instead of that database being controlled by a company that might have incentives to change what's in the database and have the power to change what's in the database without anyone knowing or being able to check them, the database that this NFT is connected to is open and decentralized so that people can see it, right? Yep. And so an NFT as an entry in this database is an indication that you own something. So it's public proof that you own something.
Got it.
Right. And what you own can be, a lot of people talk about, NFTs being owning JPEGs. That's obviously, mostly a joke. It's a joke to people making fun of NFTs. It's a joke to people in NFTs too. Right. And so an NFT could be anything really from an image. It could be as simple as an image to something as advanced as, the keys to an entire platform. Right. And anything in between. So it could be code. It could be media. It could be just an indicator that you own something like real estate. Again, I know this sounds complex and there's a lot of pieces, but at the end of the day, it's just an entry in a public database that no one can centrally control, right? That no one can tamper with, that indicates that you own something, right?
It sounds so Web 3.0.
Yep. That's the key phrase. That's exactly what it is. NFTs are going to be the way that I think most people get onboarded to Web 3.0. And that phrase has meaning because we're coming from Web 2.0. Yeah. Web 2.0 being companies like Twitter and Facebook and really blogs even where users started generating content instead of the companies having to generate all the content, the websites themselves having to generate all the content. Except in those cases, you generally get, a tiny ad share. If there are ads like on YouTube, things like that. Or,
Google
you
ads,
just get to use the
like
tools. Yeah, Google ads, or you just get to use the tools, right? And they just get to take the data. They get to take all the advertising. The companies kind of determine the terms as well, right?
They own it. Yep.
And so, as you mentioned, now we're talking about Web 3, right? This idea that instead of Twitter's database, where they can get to determine what gets said and let's say you have money in a Twitter account, money
Yeah.
in a PayPal account, money in a Venmo account. Twitter has tipping now. That is in a private database, and they can take that money away, right? And you can argue with them, but they more than likely can probably outweigh any given individual in court in proving that they don't have that money in the first place. They didn't have that money, right? They control the entire database, right? It's theirs. They own it. Obviously, we like to think good of people, that they'll be honest, but again, at the end of the day, one of the core principles of the entire Web3 space, of blockchain, but really the entire Web3 space is, sorry, what's the phrase I'm looking for? There's permissionlessness, but trustlessness.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have to trust the database owners. You don't have to trust Twitter. Right.
Yeah.
So again, we went down a bunch of rabbit holes here
That's
just
good.
to explain what an NFT is. But that's to, I want to make it concrete, but also abstract, because the abstraction is important. Because if it's too concrete, if people just think of it as just an image or a piece of art, then it's like, well, that's dumb. That's just a digital thing. It's not like the real thing. It's different.
Yeah.
But you have to get the right mental model in order to appreciate the potential value that the technology can bring.
It's intriguing. And as I kind of think about, thank you for that setup, because I think that's helpful. It's still confusing to me, but I think that just being in it all day, every day, somebody like you get it, you understand it. And the more you get into something, the more you understand it. The thing that when I think of NFTs, I think of, like Jimmy Fallon or Reese Witherspoon and those kind of things, talking about, hey, I created my own, NFT and things like that. So those are the ways I've heard it. And I've even heard from, what's that guy's name? That's, this amazing speaker, just motivator or whatever, that talks about it all the time lately, NFTs.
Oh, Gary V.
Yeah, Gary V talks about it all the time, and talks about it's the future and things like that. So it's intriguing to me for sure. And what's more intriguing is kind of this, the last year or two, the NFT community has really taken off like crazy. But I'm not 100% sure I understand what an NFT community looks like. I've been building communities for a long time. And, I think it's, in general, when I think of community of users, it's a community of users that are, interested in a very similar thing, and they talk about those kinds of things. They help each other, in different ways, and get better at a certain thing. So if it's a product, I assume it's NFT. Can you talk a little bit about what a community of NFT users would look like to you, and what maybe the value of that would be?
Absolutely. And, I think this is a very delicate topic. I think it's one that can be made simple, but I say it's delicate because it's very easy to run into the issue whereby what you see the most is what determines the meaning of words. And so, for example, in the NFT space, the phrase community gets thrown around a lot. And
the word community does, by the way, but yeah, I agree with you.
What you see a lot of is that phrase being utilized in order to maximize profit gain, right? It's people in the space know that it's a concept that is still abstract.
Yeah.
People don't know what it needs to mean to have meaningful community, to have successful community, to have rewarding community, to have valuable community, and whatever value they might have. And a lot of times that's financial, and we'll get to that in a minute. And so because there's this ambiguity, it's the Wild West, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means you have some people that are brilliant innovators, pioneers, that are developing community in a way that I would say is leveraging NFT technology and leveraging blockchain technology in a meaningful way. And by meaningful, I mean allowing for types of connectedness, allowing for types of incentives that drive types of connectedness that could not have existed otherwise. Yeah. Whether or not you think it's good or going to achieve its goals, they're exploring tools of connection and community and incentivization and governance and power sharing, right? And really, just at the end of the day, it's different ways of organizing people, organizing people and resources and effort. So the pioneers are doing that with these communities, right? And there's a lot there. I can unpack that in a minute. But then, there's a lot of hype communities where it's all about like, either one promising big things on a roadmap that they don't have the technical capacity to deliver. Like, okay, cool, you're going to build an entire metaverse game if you sell, $2 million worth of your NFTs. Like, real game studios fail at doing this kind of stuff all the time. The idea that some random 5 anonymous people on the internet that could barely launch an NFT project could pull something like that off with $2 million. And I'm not calling out anybody in particular, any projects in particular at all. I think there's a lot of smart people in the space that will deliver on their projects, on their promises, but it's kind of like Kickstarter on crack in that sense. Except when you buy into a project, unlike on Kickstarter, when you buy in, you get an asset and that becomes tradable. And now what happens now, you have that asset, it can be worth more money. What makes it worth more money? The story that everyone tells about it.
Yeah.
Now you're a part of it and you have an incentive as one of the people that owns an NFT in this collection, whether it's a piece of art or a fundraising tool or a token to events. Part of your job, like by definition, part of your job in the abstract, you have incentives, the value goes up, is to get people excited about it, to build the image that this is worth something, that it's meaningful to be a part of this community, that it's valuable, that maybe it'll even make you more money. And you know what? You can say things like, I'll never sell mine, even though you know that you'll sell yours at some point because you want to make money. You'll never sell yours though, because this project's going to be so huge, right? It's going to go to the moon. It's going to be worth so much money. So that's the complication. How do you know when people are genuinely buying into a project, have a vision, and their community buys into a vision that they can achieve and they're properly aligned, versus people that are trying to make a bunch of money? You're their experiment pretty much, and they're just using this essentially as a crowdfunding mechanism where they don't have much responsibility at all if things fail. So how do you tell the difference? That's where things get interesting. Yeah, so again, there's a lot there. I was answering your question, like, what does community look like in the NFT space? Again, there are innovators, there are pioneers, there are people that are trying to for example, do nonprofit-esque things with NFTs, right? And there are people that are just trying to make a bunch of money and trying to build their community and hype people up. And then there are just, people that appreciate whatever the community is about. That's one of the cool things. You can make it a lot simpler than all the crazy stuff I just got into, and just be like, think about Meetup, right?
Yeah.
If instead of you got to have some skin in the game. You can think about it that way. You got to have some skin in the game. You can't just like show up to these events. So like, all right, what if you had to pay $100 for an NFT and then you get to go to the meetup, and it shows you actually care enough about this thing. You got some skin in the game and you're willing to pitch in. Maybe even like make something like a community project together. Maybe that's a part of it. Maybe it goes to that automatically. Maybe the group is small, maybe it's big. Maybe you guys are artists, maybe you guys are writers, maybe you guys are weirdos, maybe you guys are whatever.
Headbangers, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. You can generate community around it, and an NFT as a technology for communities operates as a mechanism to generate funds, to obligate funds. Even, you could use even technically sometimes in a smart contract where only certain amounts will be released after votes that approve that certain measures have been met, at different stages of like a project's development, let's say, right? So someone just can't run away with like $4 million that's raised in a project to, like, I don't know, build a Dow forest treehouse. That's a spin on what one group is actually doing, Cabin Dow. But yeah, so yeah, again, I know I'm spinning out. There's a lot. We can bring it down to earth anytime.
So I'll try to bring it down to earth the best I can, but what does a Faktura community look like? Like something at your company, what would, you seem interested in this very much of a community kind of stuff. It sounds like you're also doing some interesting stuff within the NFT space as well. So what kind of community would you like to see, and how would it help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So there's like two primary areas of community that we really focus on. And it can really be broken down to the category, like the two parts of our company. So there's Faktura, the software
Yep.
platform, right? We're a SaaS. We're a traditional Web 2 company in that sense, who is trying to bring Web 3 to the Web 2 world.
Yep.
And that's why we're building tools for creators and brands and allowing them to do more advanced things, connect things from the Web 2 space and make it really easy instead of having to set up wallets and do all this complicated stuff. For example, we're working on an integration right now that allows you to pay with credit card. And then all you have to do is put in an email address, and you don't even have to have a MetaMask wallet or a crypto wallet or have Ethereum or anything like that. And you can buy and receive an NFT.
That's cool.
And then you can always transfer it to a private wallet, any wallet you want at any time, but we generate one for you.
So that I can put my head around, because that's the kind of communities I
yeah,
build, or for
yeah,
SaaS companies, right? Software SaaS companies. So
right.
there's a lot of opportunity just in that particular type of community, right?
Yeah. And so for us, like, for example, that means like I'm on LinkedIn and I'm connecting with a bunch of people in a bunch of different groups. It's how we got connected, actually, through people on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And they're doing things like this, introducing like, hey, oh, you're working on a tool that does this. Well, I mean, like, that's kind of how we know that we solve a problem, is every time we talk to someone, they're like, oh my God, it solves this, talk to this person,
Yeah.
like as a startup, that's the most valuable thing for us. And so that community building for us has been super organic. Obviously we're doing things like, planning posts, and we have marketing that we're going to be doing and everything like that to like really build this out. And once our API is live, then we're going to be building a more technical community around that, where it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Not only can you use these tools, but developers, you can build things with this, and they can get pretty crazy again, because we have this dynamic NFT architecture that no one else is really doing stuff like this. So like once we have those tools live, our community is going to shift from just this like B2B focus, we're building a product, give us feedback, we can help you launch, to more of this like, we're also incubating innovation directly in the community with our tools, and trying to push the boundaries. So
Do you
that's
use
one category.
like a Slack, or what kind of tool do you use to bring these community people together, the users?
So right now, I mean, we're in a little bit of a transition. We're in an early stage because we don't have a lot of the tools live yet. We're like
Okay.
hand holding all the project launches. So right now it's on LinkedIn, right? I'm a part of a couple of LinkedIn groups, and it's all being kind of like privately managed. And then we have a Discord for our art projects, which I'll get into in a second. And we also have a private group on there where we're managing some of the conversation. But we are going to launch a Discord that is dedicated entirely to Faktura once we're a little bit closer to MVP, and we're doing some live beta testing. And again, we're going to be focusing on those things like helping people launch projects, getting feedback from them, getting feature requests, making sure that, we go over the business use cases for the ideas that they generate. It's like a lot of people have ideas in this space, and if we can like develop a system where we're getting feedback from the community, and it's like, well, is this a genuine innovation, or is this just kitsch, or what?
Well, they can vote on these ideas, and they can add additional kind of insights to some of this stuff, so it's a great opportunity, for your product managers to kind of look at what people are needing and wanting, and but some of this is you're just gonna have to create yourself, because nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I mean, we have a really nice UX we've designed, and that's what's between now and MVP, because we have all the functionality developed. We've been launching projects. We have a big queue of projects that we're going to be launching, some of them which I can get into in a little bit, because again, a lot of them are dynamic NFTs, which I think are the future of NFTs. But yeah, so we're finishing up the front end, and we have a very, I think, efficient UX. Obviously, those, no great ideas survive meeting the market. I'm sure we're going to get a lot more feedback. We've already gotten quite a bit, but that was one of the things that we kind of had to check ourselves on when it came to like figuring out like, okay, making no code solutions for certain things, like, okay, this is like going to be a form, and this is going to be drag and drop, and this is going to, this is material design guidelines for this kind of stuff. That's one thing. But when it comes to like dynamic NFTs, which is hardly even like a phrase being registered yet, and you could any variation, right? Live NFTs, NFTs that respond to data, data-driven NFTs, connected NFTs, however you want to describe them. There's not a phrase that has fully caught on yet, in order to dominate the conversation. But my point there is that, a lot of the UX is simple, and we're trying to keep it simple. We can always improve it later. We're going to be gathering a lot of data, doing a lot of user interviews, but we want to keep things obvious, clear, simple, very traditional design patterns. And then when it comes to creating dynamic NFTs, though, we're creating tools that are kind of like designing Photoshop, right? We're approaching this as a new medium almost, but design is a part of it. But then the sales flow is a part of it too. It's like, an NFT can contain a lot. And especially when you add the fact that it can change over time and respond to data, it becomes pretty much its own program, right? It can be very simple, but it can be infinitely complicated. And so that's where like the UX innovation is going to get pretty interesting on our end.
Yeah, that's really cool. When you say dynamic NFT and there's not really coined phrase, I guess, is that right? That nobody really knows what to call it yet.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, like the NBA had a drop that they released about a month ago, not Top Shots. Their more recent one were dynamic NFTs. And people have been saying the phrase for over a year. We had been working on dynamic NFTs for over a year, but there's just like no SEO around it. And then they just took over the SEO. Right now, it's just like you would think that they're the only dynamic NFTs ever made. But it can be confusing too, because like even if you Google it, Chainlink comes up, and Chainlink, this is another rabbit hole. They provide a technology that allows for randomization, like provable, trustless, right? On chain, on blockchain, randomization. So that's like if there's a contest or a lottery, you can prove it's fair, right? And not rigged in any way. So they call that dynamic NFTs that utilize that random generation. But that's different than the way we look at it, which is any data, right? Whether it's time, a random number. In the case of NBA, it's player stats, right? Update the NFTs. For us, that's like that's an awesome use case, right? It's a novel use case, it's a collectible use case, but there's also functional ones. There's ones that can offer utility and beyond just a promotional item or a collectible item that we're exploring as well.
It seems like you have an opportunity to kind of own the SEO space for this NFT stuff. I mean, there's a lot of shit out there. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong, and who really knows? But I think like a company like yours, if you cared to, could own it, and coin the phrase the way you want to by creating just a shit ton of awesome, content that gets to where you want to go. Like example is, it's one example of many different content types, but you build this website that's really awesome. I don't know if you really want to build a 2.0 website, but you'd have to some degree, right? That is just traditionally, really great content, whether it's, creating a podcast around NFTs and all the things that you want to know about it, and then creating a transcript that pushes out directly to the website so you can get really good SEO, creating blogs, creating videos and things like that. I mean, the opportunity is there for the taking, I would assume, because it's such a slightly new stuff, right? And you could just kind of mold it to the way you would like. I don't know. That's the way I kind of see it. The opportunity is big for you.
You're completely correct. I mean, whether or not that's true in the sense of like, we might get steamrolled by like Adobe or something in a month, but that's our plan right now, right? So again, not to toot our own horn, but I think, if you Google around, the evidence speaks for itself. The concept, no matter what you label it, of NFTs that live update with data, and specifically the way we're approaching it, because we're not just updating the metadata on chain, which requires a transaction, right? NFTs are these like permanent things. So if you update the metadata on chain, that can be dynamic, but it requires a transaction. It can cost gas. It's a lot more complicated. It's going to be a lot slower. It's going to be a lot less dynamic for sure. Instead, we've come up with a unique architecture that essentially brings the full power of web applications from interfaces where you can collect data verified by the NFT owner, because only the owner could interact with it. The NFT itself, right? You don't actually have to have it on the website or anything. To, like I mentioned, like art that updates in response to any number of things, including what multiple people are doing, right? The art can update collaboratively based on what multiple owners or what multiple artists do. Yeah, really in that domain, we're trying to explore as many use cases as possible, generate blog posts, and then generate videos that explain them as well. So that's our current kind of go-to-market plan. We're going to be developing those over the next couple of months. We already have a couple that are going to be ready for our first kind of round of testing next week. But yeah, educational content that explores dynamic NFTs, what's possible you can do with the tech. Then also like the ABCs, getting back to basics. What are NFTs?
I'm telling you, man, the easiest way. I mean, yes, you're doing the right things with the blogs and stuff like that. That's just, you got to do that. But I'm telling you, man, create a podcast of some sort.
Yeah.
And get the transcripts, push them out to the main websites, because that's and what you do is you think about the topics that you want to cover. So for example, if it's dynamic NFTs, maybe look at a series of 3 or 4 different podcasts that you want to do that somebody in the space knows something really good about, or maybe it's just one of your experts, right? You bring them in and let's have a conversation, Q&A, 30-minute conversation, push the transcript in, and then you can even write a blog around kind of that whole entire podcast, right? You push that into video, audio, and do a bunch of cool shit. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things it sounds like you're doing some of the really good stuff, but
No, I think you're totally right. Like, I think I have.
These podcasts are easy. You know what I mean? Like, just
you're right.
You and I can just get together and say, okay, here's the questions that I want to ask, and think about it. Most people ask questions like, what is dynamic NFT? Perfect. You and I had a conversation about it. It's in this transcript. Then we could even write a blog around what is a dynamic NFT, blah, 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 blah. You embed the audio or the video and saying that, John Carner, our CEO, says this, some creative, awesome, thought leadership stuff, and that kind of stuff, right? Because now you're kind of seen as, you're the CEO of this company, but you're also seen as the thought leader. Because really what you want to be is, you could ask somebody that's thought leader in the space, or the leader in that space, because you don't want to just say, hey, we sell this thing. All we want to do is talk about our product, which is important, but we also can guide you in the right direction on what to do with NFTs and things like that. We're not just selling you shit. Important that you do, but it's also being that high level kind of, you want to come to us because we're going to teach you all things NFTs, and so that's just my thoughts around that.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% spot on. I think the podcast is the fastest route to that content. I mean, I agree with everything you're describing. I think, I've been a little gun shy around a lot of that kind of stuff just because we've been so heads down focusing on the actual tech. But now that we're launching all these projects, like I mentioned, we're going to be making blog posts and videos, but the same content, the same things that we're going over in these blog posts that explain the individual use cases for dynamic NFTs and how our tech is being used. Those are, good podcast conversations. I can interview my CTO and we can get into the architecture a bit, get nerdy, talk to the artists, right? We have a number of artists that we're collaborating with, all of them. We should interview.
Yeah. That's the thing. I'm starting to kind of push my organization is, hey, look, we have experts here that are thought leaders, like our CTO and founder of Reltio. He's a great thought leader and he's kind of seen as a thought leader in the space. But there's also our customers that are CIOs, CTOs that are thought leaders in the data space as well. So how do we get them on these? People want to be on these podcasts, and it's great to say, look, these artists or these CIOs that are our customers, or not even our customers, but they know a lot. They've been doing this for a long time. They have lots of expertise, and you're bringing that to them. It's not just you and your CTO, which is good, but it's also the artists, like you said, and other people that are, in the space and what they're doing and the exciting, because one, they get to kind of promote their stuff, but two is you get to promote that, hey, this is what we're bringing to the team. Nobody else is,
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
some sort of easy, say easy, nothing's easy, but you know what I mean.
I totally know what you mean, and I agree completely. I think on my end, it's mostly a matter of just like,
Mhm.
putting together a couple of documents and scheduling things.
Yeah. Time is,
Show up and hit some bullet points. But yeah,
I
yeah,
think for you, it's hard probably, being in the kind of really startup kind of space. And then
yeah,
also, how do I get out of that kind of, because eventually there's growth, right? Like eventually you get, I mean, you're a startup for a long time, but it's still like there's got to be another level that you as a CEO would want to probably go, right? Like, and then there's always different stages of that, the CEO level. You're the startup, you're just probably in the shit doing shit, and
yeah,
but then at some point you'll get staff here, staff there, and then you'll either let somebody else take it over and you'll be the CTO and founder. I don't know, whatever that is, but it's kind of cool to see, like what you guys are doing. I mean, you've
yeah. I
done this
appreciate
before,
it.
though.
Um, yeah, this is so. I mean, it depends on how you count companies versus projects and stuff, right? But this is my second, like full on attempt at building a company. The first one I developed is my first entry into like startups. Period. I had zero clue what I was doing. I taught myself everything. Taught myself how to code a little bit, how to build websites, do
Yeah,
some design, market validate. I read all the books and made all the mistakes for 5 years. But I spent 5 years building that company. Ultimately, we couldn't make enough money to like make it make sense. Um, but yeah, it was an awesome experience. It led me to like working at a couple of high growth companies in a product capacity, leveraging everything I had learned. And being in NFTs uh, a year ago, I started this company about 16 months ago. I was like, I can't be an employee right now. NFTs are too crazy. There's too much going on. And I honestly I couldn't get over the idea that everyone was so focused on static NFTs,
hmm.
like just like pretty much just JPEGs and video loops. They
Yeah,
don't change, it's like it's artifacts. And I'm like, honestly, this feels like scratching the surface of something much bigger here. And philosophically, as tools of economic exploration, as tools of community, and then also as like programmable explorations, right? That literally you can program NFTs to do anything,
hmm.
to only display certain, in our case especially, to only display certain things only under certain conditions. If certain conditions have been met, like only to give certain people access if they've done certain things. They only get the QR code to get into the event, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, and then it's an asset, right? It's something that like you do all these things, you build all this tech into it, you build all this exclusivity, all this access, all these concepts, and that's what gives it value to somebody else. Speculation aside, speculation is a whole different thing, that kind of skews real value, like, experienced value. Um, but there is a lot that can be captured. And then when it is captured by you, when your NFT responds to things that you do, levels up in whatever way, in whatever systems, whether it's a loyalty program or
yeah,
some group advancing within some group, it's on Discord or something that gives you select privileges, that then becomes something that you can sell to somebody else, right? You're capturing your labor, right? So as a technology, not just NFTs are a good starting point, but dynamic NFTs that can evolve, NFTs that can respond to real world data, they can capture things that you do, um, and convert it into something that is directly valuable and can be sold to somebody else. And that is one of the most fundamental innovations of NFTs as a technology that a lot of people miss when they're focused on these like ape images.
8-minute images. I like that. Um, well, John, this has been good. Anything else you want to kind of dive into a little bit that
Um,
that we kind of missed? I mean, I was
you
focused on the
know,
community part, but
yeah. I went pretty high level with a lot of things.
yeah,
It might be useful, to touch on just like how are people going to start seeing this, right? How are they
yeah,
going to start seeing this in their lives? And some of this is like trends that I'm seeing. Some of this is like definitely experiments by bigger brands, and we don't know it for sure. And some of this is like, well, we're building a tech and we're working on it with clients, so I know we're at least going to see some of it. But one, there's ways in which you're going to see NFTs. Um, so the market's down right now. I couldn't care
Mhm.
less. It didn't impact anything that I said this entire conversation, because we're just building. We don't really care about the price of random things in the market.
Yeah.
As a company, we're a technology company. We believe in what the technology is possible. What's possible with the technology. I mean, so and that's the thing. Is like there are so many people building right now. And these are not the people that are tweeting every day and getting all hyped up and like trying to sell you again
Right.
random collections and get you to buy into their Discord and stuff. Like there are so many builders out there that are quietly building infrastructure, technology, tools. There's a lot of very smart people. A lot of them have money. We have a little bit of money. We have some funding. There's a lot of different companies with a lot of smart people and a lot of funding, building a lot of different things for the space. And so you'll see NFTs that are more accessible. Like I mentioned, in terms of being able to buy them with like credit cards and just using your email address.
Yeah.
But you'll also see NFTs in places where you actually don't actually see them at all. There will be NFTs that you'll realize later, okay, this thing that you did in a game or in a platform or as a result of whatever actually generated an NFT, and you won't even realize that you're participating in NFT ecosystems, whether that's because it's a program that is being launched or because it's a part of a technical solution, and respecting your privacy or something like that. There's just more and more ways that NFTs are going to be embedded in people's lives without them having to even think about it, right? Another simple example is a lot of phones, like Samsung's phones, some of them are already launching with it, but all the phones in 2023 and beyond will have integrated wallets, NFT wallets, right?
Mm.
And they're just going to add more features to it. Right?
Yeah.
What's an NFT wallet? You can see your NFTs. That's a great start, but they're going to add a lot of features. They're a really big company and they sell a lot of phones, and that's just going to be built in. No one has to make any decisions. It's just going to be there built into their phone.
That is interesting. I think that slowly but surely this technology starts to come into play. So if it comes into play on your phone, then people really it has the opportunity to take off. And maybe it has taken off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got companies like yourself building shit. You know what I mean? So I think
it hasn't taken off. It's taken off in the sense that like there's a lot of stuff being built, but like mass market, it's still super early adopter, right?
infancy.
So like everybody's talking about it. There's a lot of people I think they're really smart, but NFTs, it's like, the trendy, cool thing to be like smart about. It's like economics and technology and also like all these things together. But there's so few people that actually know what's going on that, anybody listening, if nothing I said made sense, it's okay. I still highly encourage you, like, dive in. You don't have to obsess with it, but like watch some videos, check out our website. We're going to be adding a lot of content that explains things, Faktura.art. But like, learn at least some of the basics, because this is about to be in our lives in a lot of ways, very fast, a lot faster than people think. And a lot of people are kind of sleeping on it, which is okay, but there's a lot of opportunity, and it's good to understand what this might represent for our communication and a lot of other things.
Well, John, this is exciting stuff, man. I'm interested. I'll be going to Faktura.art, very soon, probably right after this, and kind of check it out again. And I really appreciate you getting on today and just explaining what NFTs are and what you guys are doing at Faktura.art, .art. So it's really cool stuff, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for having me on. Awesome conversation. Hopefully, a lot of that stuff made sense. Feel free to let me know if there's any questions that come up from, your listeners or yourself, even at any point. You can ping me and I'm down to answer, any questions about NFTs, dynamic NFTs, where their value comes from, the future, the tech.
I will.
Let me know.
For sure.
Absolutely. I'm always trying to find better ways to communicate this stuff as well, right? I'm caught up in my world, which is, it's a lot to communicate this stuff, even to people in my space, but making that bridge is going to be critical.
Yeah, I think, and I'll say this lastly, just because it's so interesting. So a few weeks ago, you and I had a conversation for about 30 minutes, and I was asking you all these questions about NFTs and communities. And you're like, Chris, I live in this all day, every day. And sometimes I forget that, people just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you coming on, because this is a hot topic that you hear a lot of people talk about, and so thanks again for coming on.
Yeah. No problem. It was a great conversation, and I hope that your audience enjoys it. Let's be in touch.
All right. Thanks for everyone for tuning in for another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Stetzel and our special guest, John Connor. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Later.